The first spell I cast in another world was clean, because I woke upside down inside a mimic with dungeon poison in my lungs and a glowing blue window congratulating me for choosing appropriate housekeeping. That sentence requires context. Unfortunately, at the time, I had 43 minutes before the room sealed for 7 years, a wooden tongue wrapped around my ankle, and no idea why my hands were 20 years younger than they should have been. The last thing I remembered from Earth was reaching into an industrial boiler cabinet after someone had sworn they had disconnected the power. They had not disconnected the power. The next thing I knew, unfamiliar memories were crashing through my head while a treasure chest tried to digest me. My name was Ren Calder. I was 24 years old, an F-rank adventurer mage in the dungeon city of Rookhaven, and apparently I had been born with the magical potential of a damp match. The body's previous owner had entered the underworks with the Gilded Basilisk Guild. He had witnessed the expedition captain, Soren Valecroft, remove something called the root key from a sealed mechanism. Soren had erased Ren's name from the expedition ledger, declared him a deserter, and left him inside a shifting chamber. The chamber had shifted. The mimic had found me. And unless I escaped before the next rearrangement, my second life was going to last less than an hour. A transparent blue panel hovered in front of my face. Foundation Spell System, ACTIVATED. Registered Magical Knowledge, embarrassingly basic. Registered Practical Knowledge, unusually relevant. Immediate recommendation, stop being digested. I would have appreciated a less judgmental afterlife. The mimic's interior tightened around me. Something burned in my chest. The memories identified it as amber spore poison, which paralyzed the lungs before dissolving the victim's mana channels. I had 6 spells. Clean, Mend, Spark, Breeze, Tug, Glow. None of them could hurt a training dummy, unless the dummy had severe allergies. I cast Clean on my mouth and lungs. Magic moved through me like cold water passing through narrow pipes. The poison vanished from my throat. I coughed once, inhaled, and discovered that breathing was one of those basic pleasures people failed to appreciate until furniture tried to take it away. The system chimed. Meaningful application recorded. You purified a lethal contaminant using a domestic cleaning spell. New title obtained, Competent Janitor. Titles have no mechanical benefit. Additional notice, you still seem pleased. The mimic squeezed harder. All right, I told it, let us establish professional boundaries. I cast Clean again, this time targeting the sticky mucus coating its throat. The spell removed it. The mimic made a noise like a wardrobe, reconsidering its life choices. Then it sneezed. I shot through its mouth, struck a wooden wall, and landed face first on cold stone with the treasure chest still clamped around my boot. The chamber was circular, 30 feet across and lined with carved metal ribs. Amber moss covered the floor. 6 stone doors had no handles. A bronze mechanism in the center clicked at uneven intervals. 41 minutes remained. I cast Glow. A coin-sized light floated above my palm. The memories insisted Glow was useful for finding dropped buttons. I sent it toward the walls. Its light caught fine lines between the stone panels. 5 were solid. Behind the 6th, the flame leaned slightly. Airflow. I cast Breeze against the wall. The faint current returned through a narrow gap. Exit, I said. The mimic released my boot and snapped shut. Then it hopped after me. I was not inviting you. It opened its lid. I chose to interpret that as disagreement. The 6th wall had no visible latch, but the center mechanism controlled the room's rotation. I inspected it the way I would have inspected an old factory machine, where patterns, heat marks, moving parts and evidence that someone important had ignored maintenance for several centuries. One copper tooth had cracked. Mend repaired the fracture, but the mechanism still did not move. A dark crystal beside it was cold. Spark created a tiny ember over my fingertip. I pressed it to the crystal. The mechanism groaned awake. Tug moved a hidden pin 1 inch. That was apparently all it needed. The sixth wall opened 3 feet before the repaired gear cracked again. I ran. The mimic bounced behind me. The wall began closing. I cast Mend on the gear while moving, which was like trying to repair a door hinge by shouting encouragement from another room. It slowed the collapse for perhaps 2 seconds. Enough for me. Not enough for the mimic. The treasure chest became a leather satchel in mid-leap, flattened itself, and slid beneath the descending stone. I stared at it. It formed a strap, looped itself around my shoulder, and pretended it had always been luggage. The system displayed another message. Unregistered creature attached. Temperament offended. Feeding preference, expensive documents. Suggested designation, pockets. I had 36 minutes left and no better ideas, so Pockets and I escaped through a maintenance passage while the underworks rearranged itself around us. By the time I saw daylight, I had used all 6 cantrips, acquired a sarcastic system, and adopted a carnivorous handbag. That was still the good part of the day. The chamber had held me for less than an hour. Outside, 11 days had passed. I emerged through a drainage grate behind Rookhaven's eastern bathhouse, soaked in gray water and carrying a satchel that tried to bite the attendant. Rookhaven rose around the dungeon like a city built on top of a sleeping machine. Heated pipes ran beneath stone streets. Blue lamps glowed without oil. Portal arches moved cargo between districts. Public fountains produced warm water even in winter. Everyone called these things dungeon blessings. I recognized neglected infrastructure. The underworks was the reason Rookhaven existed. Adventurers entered it for monster cores, alchemical ore, and ancient relics. Guilds bought exploration rights from the city. Merchants insured expeditions. Healers sold recovery contracts. Even the bakeries adjusted their prices according to dungeon harvests. And the largest guild in the city had officially accused me of stealing from it. I learned this when 2 gilded basilisk wardens found me outside the bathhouse. They did not arrest me. That would have required proof. They served me a debt notice. The previous Ren had joined the basilisk under a sponsorship contract. The guild had paid his examination fees, equipment costs, and family housing arrears. If he deserted an expedition, every benefit became immediately repayable. The total was 1,840 gold crowns. Ren's younger sister, Lysa, lived in the family home used as collateral. I had 21 days to disprove the accusation. After that, the guild could seize the house. The wardens advised me to surrender quietly. Pockets ate the bottom half of the notice. I stared at the remaining paper. The lead warden stared at Pockets. Pockets burped a brass seal. "I will request another copy," the warden said carefully. "That seems wise." The original Ren's memories gave me one possible source of proof. Every registered expedition badge recorded its holder's location, mana use, and team assignment. The records were copied into the Underworks Central Archive during the Deep Turn, a major rearrangement occurring every 6 months. The next Deep Turn was in 20 days. The archive lay below the 19th level. Only C-rank adventurers attached to an authorized guild expedition could enter that route. I was F-rank. No guild wanted me. The Gilded Basilisk had influence over most of the city's major organizations, and Soren Valecroft had returned as a hero. According to the public report, he had tried to rescue me after I panicked, stole a relic, and fled into a restricted corridor. Soren was an A-rank flame mage, senior expedition captain, and one of the men credited with saving Rookhaven during the Ash Hound breach 3 years earlier. He was not some incompetent noble who had stumbled into authority. He was organized, admired, and extremely good at making difficult decisions sound inevitable. The fourth guild I approached had guards remove me before I reached the interview desk. The seventh offered to accept me if I signed away 70% of all future earnings. The ninth asked whether I knew any useful magic. "I can clean things," I said. The clerk closed the application. At sunset, I reached the Wayward Kettle. Its headquarters occupied the upper floor of a tea house between a funeral florist and a shop selling second-hand helmets. A crooked brass sign displayed the guild motto: "We usually return with everyone." Someone had painted the word "usually" in a different color. Inside, 3 adventurers were arguing over an insurance form, while a huge gray-haired man stood on a table, attempting to catch steam in a cooking pot. "I assume there is an explanation," I said. "There was," he replied. "Then it became worse." His name was Bram Tallow, former B-rank shield-bearer and current guildmaster. The guild's tea boiler had developed a pressure fault. He had tried to repair it using a defensive barrier. This had protected the boiler from the room. It had not protected the room from the boiler. I inspected the rune chamber beneath it. The heating crystal was intact. The release valve was clogged with mineral deposits, and the pressure enchantment had cracked. I cast clean on the valve and mend on the damaged rune. The system registered both uses. The boiler whistled. Bram leaned closer. "Should it do that?" "No." The lid launched upward, struck the ceiling, and embedded itself in a beam. Silence filled the tea house. Pockets opened slightly, as though impressed. "I repaired the original problem," I said. "I also activated every heating rune at once." Bram looked at the steaming crater above us. Then he looked at my application. "Can you start tomorrow?" A woman sitting near the window lowered the map she had been reading. She had short dark hair, a green traveling coat, and the expression of someone whose patience had been professionally sharpened. "That," she told Bram, "is either the worst decision you have made this month or the reason we survive it." "Mara Fenn," Bram said, "C-rank scout, cartographer, suspicious of optimism." "I am suspicious of you." "That too." Mara studied me. "You have 20 days to reach C-rank. Enter one of the most unstable routes in the underworks, and recover evidence against the most respected expedition captain in Rookhaven." "Yes." "You know 6 cantrips." "Yes." "You destroyed our ceiling while repairing a kettle." "That was an unrelated pressure calibration issue." She folded her map. "I will evaluate him." I had expected encouragement. What I received was Mara taking my application, drawing a line through the word mage, and writing household emergency specialist. Pockets ate the corner. Mara looked at the mimic. "Does it do that often?" "I have known it for 12 hours. "So yes." That was how I joined the worst respectable guild in Rookhaven. My first official assignment was listed as minor contamination removal. The contamination occupied the entire eastern well, glowed purple after sunset, and caused anyone who drank the water to sneeze sparks for approximately 6 hours. 312 residents depended on that well. The guild had sent a combat mage the previous day. He burned the moss away. It returned twice as thick. Mara watched me kneel beside the water. "You are smiling," she said. "I understand this problem." "You smiled before destroying the kettle." "I understood most of that problem." The moss was not growing in the water. It was feeding on an oily, magical contaminant floating between the mineral layers. Clean could remove impurities, but the spell required me to define what did not belong. If I cleaned the entire well indiscriminately, I might strip away useful salts, protective enchantments, or the trace mana that kept the water fresh. I collected samples. I used glow to compare their color. I used breeze to separate vapor and spark to test their mana response. Mara waited for nearly an hour before saying, "People usually cast spells during magical work. I am determining which spell not to cast." That sounds suspiciously like delaying. It is the foundation of maintenance. I cast clean on one cup and focused only on the oily foreign mana. The purple film vanished. The mineral glow remained. I drank a mouthful. Mara grabbed my sleeve. "If you begin sneezing fire, I am throwing you into the well." The water tasted like copper and old stone. No sparks. I repeated the process across the well in narrow layers. It took 43 castings and most of my mana, but the moss faded as its food disappeared. The system chimed. New understanding achieved. Selective purification. Clean may now distinguish between substances you have personally analyzed. Precision increased. Multiplicity unlocked. I tried casting clean on 4 cups simultaneously. It worked. Then I tried 8. My vision doubled, and I fell backward into Mara. She caught me by the collar. "Powerful," she said. "Thank you." I meant the smell. We earned 12 silver crowns. The residents began calling me the cleaning mage. I disliked the title, until I learned that people were willing to pay a cleaning mage more than an unemployed combat mage. Our next job involved invisible tunnel crawlers stealing food from a warehouse. They were not truly invisible. Their skin bent light around them, but air still moved across their bodies. I filled the warehouse with 32 glow motes and used breeze to send a steady current through the aisles. The lights flickered wherever the air struck something unseen. Mara trapped the creatures beneath weighted nets. Pockets ate one of the nets. No one had asked Pockets to participate. 2 days later, an old freight bridge cracked while a merchant wagon was crossing it. I could not lift the wagon with tug. The spell moved less than 1 pound by 1 inch. So I cast it on the bridge nails. Then the rope fibers. Then the wheel. Then the individual stones beneath the axle. 1 tug was useless. 200 tugs, applied in different directions, held the structure together long enough for Mara to lead the driver and horses across. The system rewarded me with greater multiplicity. My mana did not increase, my control improved. I learned to divide a single unit of mana into many tiny instructions. At 64 simultaneous spells, headaches began. At 128, my hands shook. At 256, I woke on the guild floor with Bram using a meat pie as smelling salts. "You need rest," Mara said. "I need better control." "You need both." "I have 19 days." "You have a body that dislikes being used as a siege engine." I ignored her. That was my first serious mistake. The system encouraged meaningful applications, not repetition, so I began taking every strange assignment the kettle could find. I restarted an ancient lift with spark. I repaired 27 cracked guild badges with mend. I used breeze to vent smoke from a potion shop after an apprentice confused sleeping powder with powdered salamander. I used glow to reveal an illusion hiding a collapsed stairwell. Each success made the cantrip slightly more flexible. Each failure taught me that interpretation mattered. I tried using clean to remove rust from an enchanted sword. It removed the rust. It also removed the blade's red lacquer, ceremonial blessing and waterproofing. The sword's owner stared at the pale gray metal. I asked you to clean it. It is extremely clean. Mara turned away, but I saw her shoulders shaking. The worst accident happened before a rain-soaked escort mission. I attempted to clean our entire team's equipment at once. The spell removed mud, sweat, dust, dyes, waterproofing wax, and several minor reinforcement coatings. 6 adventurers stood in the guild hall wearing colorless clothing. Bram examined his formerly blue cloak. Why is everything gray? The spell interpreted decoration as non-essential. Mara pulled at her pale coat. Can it be reversed? Mend cannot repair something that is not broken. Rain hammered the windows. No one spoke. We completed the mission. We returned looking like a traveling organization dedicated to disappointment. After that, Mara made me test every new interpretation on one object at a time. She also began carrying spare waterproofing wax. By the end of the first week, I reached E rank. The city clerk gave me an advancement form. Pockets swallowed it before the ink dried. The replacement was enchanted against mimics. Pockets chewed it slowly while maintaining eye contact. My official guild badge remained F rank for 3 more days. I was beginning to suspect Pockets had political opinions. The first time I combined glow and breeze properly, I stopped seeing a corridor and started seeing its shape. Mara and I were surveying an abandoned route on the 7th level. I released 100 glow motes and pushed them forward on controlled currents. Every light changed direction when the air struck a wall, opening or moving object. The system tracked their positions. A 3-dimensional outline formed inside my mind. The corridor had 2 visible doors, one hidden chamber and something large breathing behind us. Mara. I know. How? You stopped talking. A stone-backed lizard charged from the darkness. Mara rolled aside. I cast breeze beneath my boots and tried to push myself sideways. I went upward. 9 feet upward. I struck a laundry line left by a previous expedition, became wrapped in 3 ancient shirts and swung into the wall. Mara trapped the lizard with a collapsible barrier. She looked up at me. Was that intentional? I have established that flight is possible. You have established that ceilings exist. She cut me down. I spent the next 2 days improving directional control. Breeze could not lift me continuously, but short bursts slowed falls, lengthened jumps, and created midair steps. Combined with tug, I could alter my own movement by inches at crucial moments. The system called the technique vector assistance. Bram called it not falling properly. Our small successes began attracting attention. A warehouse owner paid us to inspect a cooling array. A healer asked me to remove foreign mana from a cursed bandage. The Blue Lantern surveyors invited Mara to share our airflow maps. Then a portal arch failed during the morning cargo rush. 87 people were inside the transfer hall when the outer ring began collapsing. A conventional mage tried to hold the portal open with raw mana. That increased the strain. I saw the problem immediately. 3 anchor runes had cracked. The ring was not short of power. It had too much power entering through damaged channels. I sent glow through the structure and used spark to test which lines still responded. Then I cast mend. Not on the entire portal. On one fracture. Then another. Then another. Tug held loose crystal fragments in position. Breeze carried heat away. Clean removed mana residue from the anchor points. Mara organized the evacuation. She did not wait for me to explain. She read the map formed by my glow motes and directed people through the safest edge of the arch. For 6 minutes, we kept the portal stable. All 87 travelers escaped. The portal collapsed after the last cart cleared the threshold. I woke 2 hours later with a headache severe enough to make sunlight feel vindictive. The story spread across Rookhaven before I could stand. Some people called me a genius. Others insisted I had secretly cast a fourth circle stabilization spell. A columnist described me as a mysterious utility savant. The guild clerk finally updated my rank. My new badge read, RENCALDER. D rank, Provisional Illumination Assistant. I stared at it. That is not my profession. The original correction request was lost, the clerk said. Pockets sat beneath the desk, looking innocent in the way only a carnivorous bag could. Public attention brought money. It also brought people who wanted to own my methods. A merchant consortium offered me 2,000 gold crowns for exclusive control of selective purification. That amount would have cleared the Calder debt. I nearly accepted. Mara read the contract and pointed to the clause allowing the consortium to prevent anyone else from using similar techniques. They could charge villages for clean water, she said. I know. You considered signing. I have a sister who may lose her home, and 300 people at the Eastern Well who would never afford the licensing fee. I hated that she was right. I refused the contract. The consortium responded by claiming my magic was unsafe. The Royal Institute summoned me for examination. 3 archmages watched me extinguish a fire spell using 32 sparks placed around its ignition pattern. I did not overpower the spell. I interrupted the tiny mana impulses holding it together. The fire collapsed into warm air. One archmage accused me of cheating. Another asked for my notes. The third attempted the technique, burned his eyebrows and demanded that I leave. Soren Vailcroft was waiting outside. He wore the red and gold coat of the Gilded Basilisk, with a silver expedition chain across one shoulder. He looked exactly as the original Ren remembered, composed, handsome and tired in a way that made people assume responsibility rather than guilt. You survived, he said. You sound disappointed. I am relieved. That is a bold emotion from the man who erased my expedition record. His expression barely changed. I did what I believed was necessary. To save the guild. To save 600 employees, their families, and half the businesses dependent on our routes. He did not deny taking the route key. He did not apologize. He studied my badge. Minor spells will not protect you from what is coming. They protected 87 people from a portal your guild certified as safe. His jaw tightened. That was when I realized he had not come to threaten me. He had come to evaluate me. Soren understood that my cantrips were becoming dangerous. And unlike the people laughing at my badge, he intended to learn why. The sealed maintenance chamber was hidden beneath a corridor, every guild map labeled empty. Mara found it because my glow motes kept disappearing into a section of wall that appeared solid. I found the entrance because Breeze returned carrying warm metal air. Pockets found it because the door contained expensive ink. The chamber opened when I cast all 6 cantrips in sequence. Clean cleared a sensor. Spark activated it. Glow provided light. Breeze turned a tiny fan. Tug moved a latch. Mend completed a broken circuit. The wall folded inward. Rows of bronze conduits extended into darkness. Crystal cylinders pulsed with slow blue light. Maps covered the walls, but they did not show dungeon rooms. They showed Rookhaven. Water pipes. Heating channels. Portal routes. Waste tunnels. Defensive barriers. Mana distribution lines. The underworks was not a ruin. It was a machine. The system filled my vision. Foundation network identified. Original purpose, regional maintenance, environmental regulation, and emergency defense. Current operational condition, declining. Estimated unsupported service life, 23 days. I read the message 3 times. Mara stood beside me. Ren, the dungeon is failing. She looked at the machinery. Dungeons do not fail. This one is not a dungeon. I explained what I understood. The creatures were security organisms and maintenance constructs. Treasure rooms were supply depots. Dungeon resets were automated repair cycles. The strange restrictions on routes were access controls. Cantrips were not children's magic. They were command inputs. The Foundation network had been designed to respond to precise, low-energy instructions. High-circle spells had been invented centuries later by people who no longer understood the original system. Modern mages forced power into the underworks from outside, damaging it a little more every year. Soren had removed the root key from the central distribution system. That was why the city's portals were failing, why wells were contaminated, why mechanisms required constant repair. Mara ran her fingers over one of the maps. The deep turn. The system attempts a complete maintenance cycle. Without the root key, it may overload. Can we replace it? I do not know. The system displayed another message. Foundation compatibility detected in prior soul imprint. I found a hidden compartment containing notebooks. They belonged to the original Ren. He had been studying the underworks for years. Everyone had assumed he was a failed combat mage because he spent expeditions inspecting walls, vents, and broken machinery. In reality, he had discovered patterns no one else noticed. His final entry described the root key and warned that removing it would destabilize the city. I sat on the floor with the notebook in my hands. Until that moment, I had thought of the original Ren as the unlucky body I inherited. But he had been clever, patient, alone. He had reached the truth before I did, without a system translating anything for him. Soren had not abandoned a frightened weakling. He had abandoned the first person capable of proving what he had done. Mara sat across from me. You look like someone died. Someone did. She did not understand the full meaning, but she did not press. The system revealed that the root key could reconnect to the network during the deep turn. Afterward, damage would become permanent. We had 13 days. I wanted to tell Bram, the city council, and every guild. Then I imagined Soren learning that the root key controlled the entire network. If he understood its true function, he could use the basilisk's resources to seize the central chamber before us. We keep this quiet, I said. Mara frowned. We need help. We need proof first. We have maps. We have a room no one else can open, and a system only I can see. We have a city beginning to break. I will handle it. Her expression changed. Not anger. Disappointment. That sentence usually means someone has decided other people are easier to manage when uninformed. I am protecting the information. From Soren. Yes. And from me. No. Then tell me everything. I should have. Instead, I told her enough to keep working and hid the systems, warning about the network's rate of collapse. I convinced myself I was being cautious. The truth was simpler. In my first life, someone else's carelessness had killed me. In Ren's life, trust had left him inside a mimic. I understood machines because machines behaved according to rules. People made choices. Choices frightened me. So I started experimenting alone. That was how I nearly proved Soren right. The damaged portal sat beneath an abandoned station on the 9th level. If I could repair it, We would have a direct route to the central archive during the deep turn. The outer ring was coated in black foreign mana. I analyzed it for 2 days. Then I attempted selective purification. Clean removed the corruption exactly as intended. It also removed a stabilizing enchantment I had failed to recognize. The portal activated. For one bright second, I saw a corridor on the other side. Mara and 6 blue lantern surveyors crossed to place markers. Then the arch collapsed. The system filled my vision. Semantic error. Classification incomplete. Beneficial structure removed. Understanding is not permission. I tried to reopen the portal. Spark failed. Mend found nothing it could repair because the stabilizing enchantment had not broken. I had erased it. For 3 hours, I believed Mara was trapped in a collapsing root because I had been too arrogant to admit what I did not know. She returned through an emergency tunnel with torn gloves, dust in her hair and fury in every movement. No one had died. 2 surveyors had broken bones. 1 had lost expensive mapping equipment. All 6 had spent hours crossing a corridor filled with territorial stone beetles. Mara walked directly to me. You knew the spell could misclassify enchantments. Yes. You knew you did not understand the portal. Yes. You knew the network was failing faster than you told us. I said nothing. She had found the hidden system notes I had translated. Her voice lowered. You do not trust us enough to make informed decisions. You move us around like parts in one of your machines and call it protection. I was trying to keep Soren from learning what we found. Soren did not close that portal. The words landed harder than shouting. The Blue Lanterns withdrew from the expedition. Mara suspended her membership in the Wayward Kettle team. Bram did not defend me. He sat beside the ruined portal while healers treated the injured surveyors. You are clever, he said. Clever people often believe mistakes become noble when they have good reasons. I can fix this. That is the sentence you use when you do not want to apologize. The city investigation suspended my access to restricted routes. My public reputation changed overnight. The mysterious cantrip genius became the reckless cleaning mage. The merchant consortium released statements about unregulated utility magic. The Royal Institute demanded control over my research. Soren appeared before the council with a solution. He called it cascade casting. He had studied my demonstrations and recreated multiplicity through raw power. Instead of dividing 1 unit of mana into precise instructions, he used an enormous mana reservoir to cast hundreds of incomplete spell fragments at once. It was inelegant, wasteful, dangerous. It also worked. In front of the city council, Soren stabilized a failing heating junction using layers of flame magic, force barriers, and repair runes. The chamber shook. 3 conduits cracked. The heat returned to the western district. The council applauded. Soren received emergency authority to access the root key during the deep turn. Afterward, he visited the Wayward Kettle. You were right about the underworks, he told me privately. It is infrastructure. The root key can distribute enough power to stabilize it. It can distribute commands, not power. That distinction matters to technicians. The city needs results. You are forcing mana through damaged channels. And you are experimenting on people without telling them the risks. I had no answer that did not sound like an excuse. Soren sat across from me. The Gilded Basilisk is failing. 381 adventurers depend directly on our routes. 200 support workers depend on our contracts. If the guild collapses, families lose homes. Healers lose employment. Merchants lose supply lines. So you sacrificed Ren. I sacrificed one unknown F-rank adventurer to protect hundreds. You erased him. I made a decision. And if the network fails, then I will force it to function. He believed that. That was what made him dangerous. He was willing to carry responsibility, pain, and blame. He simply believed everyone beneath him was part of the cost. Before leaving, he looked at my gray equipment hanging beside the door. You reduce everything to components, Ren. Do not pretend you and I are entirely different. After he left, Pockets climbed onto the table and spat out my original D-rank correction form. The paper was soggy and unreadable. I laughed. It came out wrong. For 3 days, I did not cast a spell. The deep turn began 12 hours early. At 6 in the morning, every blue street lamp in Rookhaven turned red. At 6:03, the Western Portal network shut down. At 6:10, heated water began pouring through the market drains. At 6:15, the ground moved. 5 registered expeditions were still inside the underworks. The guild bells rang continuously. Bram entered my room carrying armor, a map case, and 2 cups of tea. You may continue feeling sorry for yourself after we stop the city from falling into its own plumbing. I am suspended. So is half the Western District. He placed the map case in front of me. Inside were Mara's shared route charts. She had sent them to every guild. No secrets. No exclusive ownership. Every safe passage, ventilation path, and emergency exit was marked. She gave these to us. She gave them to everyone. The system appeared. Network collapse in progress. Required stabilization commands exceed user capacity by 4,731%. I could not save Rookhaven alone. Even at my highest safe multiplicity, I could maintain only 512 cantrips for several minutes. The Foundation network required thousands. The system would not increase my mana. I stared at Mara's maps and understood the answer I had spent weeks avoiding. I needed other people. More importantly, they needed to understand what they were doing. I gathered every note, experiment, and translation I possessed. Bram invoked the Emergency Compact of 842, an old agreement created after a migrating dragon herd trapped 7 guilds underground. Under the compact, guild masters had to share maps, supplies, and personnel during a city-level dungeon emergency. The gilded basilisk attempted to challenge the order. Pockets ate their objection. Not the original. Only the duplicate copies. For once, its timing was legally useful. I found Mara at the Blue Lantern Hall directing rescue teams. She looked exhausted. I placed my notes on the table. This is everything. She glanced at them. Everything you decided we were allowed to know. Everything. What is the network's current survival estimate? 6 hours. What happens if Soren activates cascade casting through the root key? The network may respond for several minutes, then overloaded channels will fail across the city. How many cantrips do you need? Approximately 8,000. Her eyes narrowed. You can cast 500. On a good day. This is not a good day. No. She waited. I had practiced the apology twice on the way there. Both versions sounded like technical reports. I treated your trust as another resource I could control, I said. I decided that because I understood the danger, I had the right to decide what everyone else risked. I was wrong. I am sorry. The room remained quiet. Myra looked at the notes. One apology does not repair 6 broken bones. I know. It does not restore trust. I know. And if we survive, I am still angry. That seems fair. She pulled the maps toward her. What do you need? Not forgiveness. Not reassurance. A decision. I explained relay casting. The system responded to low-energy commands. Any mage could provide those commands if they followed precise timing. My Foundation interface could coordinate the network, but only if other casters acted as relays. Mara reorganized the entire rescue plan in 19 minutes. The blue lanterns would mark routes. The iron choir would secure evacuation corridors. The wayward kettle would carry repair teams. Independent healers would establish stations at levels 4, 7, and 11. 47 mages volunteered to cast cantrips. Several were embarrassed to admit they had not used beginner magic in years. One archmage asked whether spark required a wand. No, I said. Then why was I issued one? Marketing. He seemed offended by the possibility. We entered the underworks through the eastern freight shaft. The dungeon shifted around us. Walls moved. Lights failed. Creatures fled deeper underground. Every few minutes, the system displayed another collapse. For the first time, I did not hold the whole plan in my head. Mara carried the route. Bram managed defense. The relay mages memorized casting sequences. I trusted them with the parts I could not control. It was terrifying. It was also the first time the burden became lighter. At the entrance to the central chamber, Mara caught my sleeve. If your plan fails, we evacuate. You will not stay behind attempting a heroic repair. I dislike heroism. That was not an answer. I looked at her. No secret plans. She released my sleeve. Pockets opened its lid and produced one of her missing map pencils. Mara took it. I have been looking for this for 3 weeks. Pocket snapped shut. Our final descent began with 47 mages, 3 guilds, 1 emergency compact, and a mimic committing stationary theft during a civic disaster. It was not elegant. It was enough. Soren reached the central chamber before us. The root key stood inside a bronze column 40 feet tall, surrounded by rotating rings of gold and black metal. Energy moved through the floor in pulses strong enough to shake dust from the ceiling. Soren and 12 basilisk mages had connected a cascade array to the column. The network screamed. I do not mean that metaphorically. Every conduit in the room released a high metallic sound, like thousands of pipes bending at once. Soren stood inside a circle of flame. You are too late, he called. The city lights above us flickered on. For 3 seconds, the chamber stabilized. His mages cheered. Then the system flooded my vision. Catastrophic overload initiated. Estimated regional failure, 11 minutes. Cracks of white light spread across the floor. Soren, I shouted, stop feeding it power. The network is responding. It is dying. He raised both hands. Grand ignition formed above him, a sphere of concentrated flame magic wrapped in layers of force, heat, and command runes. It was the kind of spell people wrote songs about. I had 6 cantrips. Mara began issuing orders. Blue Lantern scouts released mapping lights. Iron Choir defenders anchored shields along the exits. Our relay mages spread through the chamber. The Foundation system recognized them. External command sources detected, 47. Coordination permission required. I accepted. Pain struck behind my eyes. Every glow mode in the chamber appeared inside my mind. 300. 900. 2000. The network became visible. Not as walls and machines. As flows. Heat. Pressure. Mana. Structural strain. Thousands of tiny failures. First sequence, I called. 47 mages cast glow. The chamber filled with lights. Breeze northern channels. Air currents move through damaged conduits, carrying heat away. Tug alignment pattern 3. Hundreds of weak telekinetic pulls shifted metal components by fractions of an inch. Mend relay on my mark. Cracks began closing. Soren's grand ignition descended into the root key. Power exploded through the network. The city above brightened. The chamber floor split. I sent 32 sparks into the grand spell's outer ignition pattern. Each spark was weaker than a candle flame. Each struck between the pulses, holding Soren's spell together. The outer layer flickered. Soren saw what I was doing. He adapted. He changed the timing. He compressed the spell and used cascade fragments to shield its structure. That was why he had become an A-rank captain. He learned quickly. His magic pressed against mine, with enough force to drive me to one knee. "You cannot maintain this," he shouted. He was right. My mana was nearly empty. So I stopped trying to supply the spells. I became the coordinator. The relay mages provided power. I provided instructions. Spark sequence 7. Hundreds of tiny flashes moved through the grand ignition. Clean the uncontrolled discharge, not the spell. Foreign mana peeled away from damaged channels. Breeze full release. Heat rose toward the ventilation shafts. Tug western supports. 800 weak pulls held a collapsing ring in alignment. Mend. Fractures sealed behind the moving energy. The system count climbed. 1,024 simultaneous cantrips. 2,048. 4,096. My nose began bleeding. My hands went numb. The system displayed a warning. User capacity exceeded. Foundation domain available for 11 minutes. Condition, mapped environment. Condition, external mana relays. Condition, complete command transparency. Complete command transparency meant everyone connected to the network could see my instructions. No hidden plan. No secret reserve. No ability to use people without their knowledge. I activated it. The chamber changed. Every light became part of my awareness. Every relay mage became a point in the system. Every cantrip became a tool. 8,192 minor spells moved through the Foundation network. Soren's grand ignition did not explode. I took it apart. Spark interrupted its rhythm. Tug redirected its pressure. Breeze carried away its heat. Clean removed the mana he no longer controlled. Mend repaired the channels behind it. The enormous spell dissolved into waves of golden light. Soren fell beside the root key. The column cracked above him. For one moment, I considered leaving him. The original Ren had died because of him. My sister nearly lost her home because of him. The entire city was endangered because he believed other people were acceptable costs. Then I saw the broken support ring. I cast Tug. 400 vectors pulled Soren away from the column. Bram caught him behind a shield. "You saved me," Soren said. "I am trying very hard not to become you." Pockets launched itself from my shoulder. The mimic crossed the chamber in 3 furious hops and clamped onto the root key housing. The housing resembled a treasure chest. Apparently, Pockets considered this offensive. Its teeth locked around the release mechanism. The root key shifted. The Foundation network recognized it. Reconnection initiated. We cast the final sequence together. Clean cleared the corrupted channels. Mend restored the broken links. Spark awakened dormant nodes. Glow mapped the returning flow. Breeze balanced heat and pressure. Tug aligned the root key with the central column. The mechanism closed. For one terrible second, nothing happened. Then the network restarted. Across the chamber, dead lights turned blue. The sound of bending metal faded. The system count fell from 8,192 to 0. Somewhere far above, Rookhaven street lamps returned one district at a time. I collapsed against the floor. The last thing I saw was Pocket sitting proudly on the root key housing. The mimic opened its lid. Inside was Soren's expedition badge. I had no idea when it had stolen it. The expedition badges had recorded everything. Soren removing the root key. Soren altering the original team assignment. The moment my badge was erased from the Basilisk expedition. His grand ignition. Our relay network. The root key reconnecting. No secret witness appeared. No forgotten legal clause destroyed him. The truth had existed in the system the entire time. We only needed access to the archive before someone buried it. The city council restored my identity and canceled the desertion debt. Lysa kept the house. When I returned home, she stared at me for 10 seconds, slapped my shoulder and then hugged me so hard that Pockets became jealous and bit the curtain. She had spent 11 days believing I was dead, and another 2 weeks hearing that I was a criminal. I tried to explain transmigration. I stopped after the part about dying inside an electrical cabinet. She decided dungeon trauma had damaged my sense of humor. It was probably easier that way. Soren lost his rank, expedition authority and guild position. He was not thrown into a cell beneath the city. Rookhaven needed people who understood the underworks, and Soren had helped damage it. He was assigned 8 years of supervised restoration work. His wages would compensate the families of adventurers he had classified as acceptable losses. The Gilded Basilisk lost its exclusive roots but did not collapse. The council divided its dungeon rights among 5 organizations and required shared safety maps. Hundreds of employees kept their jobs under new leadership. That mattered to me. Defeating Soren would have felt hollow if the people he claimed to protect had suffered for it. He visited me once during recovery. Without his red coat, he looked older. I thought I was saving them, he said. I know. That does not make what I did forgivable. No. He nodded. I respected him slightly more for not asking. The Royal Institute offered me a senior research position. 3 major guilds offered command rank. The Merchant Consortium offered 6,000 gold crowns and withdrew the part about exclusive ownership. I refused all of them. I remained with the wayward kettle. Bram had trusted my usefulness before it became fashionable. Mara had returned when the city needed her, but she did not pretend our friendship was instantly repaired. Trust came back through smaller things. I shared experiment plans before testing them. She told me when fear was making me secretive. I stopped using the phrase calculated risk unless I had shown her the calculation. She established the Rookhaven Shared Survey, giving every registered guild access to updated safety maps. I added maintenance records. The Iron Choir added evacuation routes. The Basilisk's new leadership contributed monster migration data. For the first time, adventurers entered the underworks with information other guilds had discovered. Casualties fell by 41% in the first 3 months. My relationship with Mara became difficult to classify. We worked together. We argued. She began bringing me food when I forgot to eat. I repaired the clasp on her green coat so many times that Mend began recognizing it automatically. Once, during an inspection of the western ventilation tower, she asked whether I had deliberately chosen the sunset shift. Yes. Is this supposed to be romantic? It has excellent airflow. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she laughed and kissed my cheek. I nearly stepped into the ventilation shaft. Breeze prevented my death. Mara later described this as the most convincing demonstration of cantrip value in Rookhaven history. The Foundation system classified me as an Archmage. My highest spell circle remained 0. The official guild registry refused to accept that combination. After 6 weeks of administrative dispute, the clerk issued a new badge. Ren Calder. A rank Foundation May. Former Provisional Illumination Assistant. I asked him to remove the last line. He said the correction form required my signature. Pockets aided. Some battles were beyond magic. My cantrips continued growing. Clean could separate curse residue from living mana. Mend could reconnect damaged spell structures. Spark could interrupt complex casting. Breeze could control airflow across entire halls. Tug could create fields of thousands of tiny forces. Glow could map an invisible network beneath a city. I still could not cast Fireball. That became a problem for other people more than it was for me. A fire mage once challenged me to a duel and spent 4 minutes attempting to complete one spell, while 32 sparks interrupted his ignition sequence. Afterward, I repaired his wand, cleaned the soot from his robe, and submitted the incident report before he stopped swearing. People began calling me the Archmage of Minor Spells. I disliked the title. Then I discovered Soren disliked it more. So I kept it. The system's final message appeared 6 months after the deep turn, while I was repairing the Wayward Kettle's tea boiler for the 9th time. Current classification, Archmage. Highest registered spell circle, 0. Conclusion, the classification system requires maintenance. The boiler whistled. Bram looked up from behind his shield. Should it do that? No. The lid launched through the new ceiling. Pockets applauded by opening and closing its mouth. Mara covered her face. I had saved Rookhaven with 8,192 cantrips, repaired an ancient dungeon network, and dismantled an A-rank grand spell without learning anything more advanced than beginner magic. I still could not repair that kettle. Everyone kept asking when I intended to learn real magic. By then, every real mage in Rookhaven had started carrying a cantrip book.